I would like to take a moment before we get into today's main episode and to talk about my sponsor for the podcast. Podmatch is a new podcasting site dedicated to all podcasters. The platform helps hosts get connected with potential guests to appear on their show, as well as allow guests to find podcasts that will give them a chance to share their story. Podmatch offers many tools to help organize your page, from to-do lists to episode planning to potentially appearing on a leaderboard. Podmatch has it all. The best part, you have the potential to get paid. And who doesn't like to get paid from home? I like to. With an easy sign up, you can start connecting with podcasters and guests immediately. I have been a part of Podmatch since the beginning of May, and I have got to say that it was the best decision I've ever made because Podmatch helps your podcast grow. It helps you get connected with people that have very interesting, very compelling background stories that are just waiting for their story to be shared. So if you are a host or guest and would like to start building professional relationships, explore more opportunities, and have your story shared, I highly suggest that you sign up with Podmatch today by going to joinpodmatch.com/lethal venom to start expanding your network in seconds. I would like to give another huge thank you to Podmatch for sponsoring this episode. Now on to our main episode, and again, you can sign up at joinpodmatch.com/lethal venom to begin your podcasting journey today. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Lethal Venom podcast. This is the show where I talk about anything I want with the honest to God truth and the last told. Today, I'm joined by Jason Schreurs. He is a writer, punk rocker, and mental health advocate and host of the podcast Scream Therapy. The podcast in his forthcoming book, also called Scream Therapy, discusses punk rock as a catalyst for mental health. He lives in Powell River, BC, and he's just going to tell us a little bit about his background and story. So, Jason, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks a lot for having me, Noah.
So if you could just introduce yourself and tell me what you do.
Sure. So I'm Jason, like you mentioned. I'm a writer, a punk rocker. I'm a mental health advocate as well, and I'm doing a podcast which started back in 2019. And so basically, I've been a writer my whole life. I've always been involved with the punk rock music scene. I wrote about punk rock bands for a long, long time. I'm in my early 50s now, and I started doing that in my early 20s. And got away from that maybe a few years ago when I had a huge mental health crisis. And that put me into a state of not being able to do anything, basically not feeling like anything mattered or that I wanted to do the things that I loved. I was diagnosed with bipolar, which for folks that don't know is a very up and down depression mania, back and forth kind of ride, and it's a horrible ride. So that really put me out. Slowly I got back on. I think the podcast was the first thing that I really got into after being diagnosed, and then started working on the book after that, and the book came out in 2023.
So what is it like to live with bipolar?
It's very tough. I think I've gotten to a place now where I feel relatively stable. Um, it's a condition that if you don't work at it in a lot of different ways, it can stay really volatile. It can be very up and down. So that could be from really like suicidal depression and all the way up to full-fledged mania, which involves delusional behavior and recklessness and can even lead into psychosis. So it's like one week you think something is amazing and the best thing ever, and the next week you think it's the worst thing ever and you want to die. Like that's kind of, it's very all over the place. And I think that's why, the word bipolar has kind of gotten that almost like a slang of being like, I'm so all over the place. Well, um, this is a very extreme version of that, and it's a serious medical condition. Um, it's it's a ride. It's definitely a ride. And I think for me, I'm in what I might call, I mean, this sounds kind of weird, but it's sort of like a remission where I've kind of gotten to the point now where my episodes aren't very strong. I can make it through the day without being severely affected by the bipolar. But through my whole life, and especially the crisis back in 2018, it was not manageable at all, and it was very um, scary.
What have you learned through your mental health journey the most?
Patience. It's hard to say when things seem so dire and extreme, but having patience. Acceptance is huge. A lot of people including myself, weren't able to accept that they would have to live with this condition for the rest of their lives. So they weren't able to accept that medication would be a lifelong necessity. And I think it's about also the tendency is to fight against these conditions, right? Like you have a mental health condition and you want to beat it, you want to win, you want to get rid of it, you want to cure yourself, and that's just not um, realistic or even possible in a lot of cases. So accepting that you're dealing with this for life is, for me, was a really huge turning point. Because once I accepted it, then I was able to use a lot of the positive traits that come along with these moods to really help my life. And also to realize that when the traits were just super negative and detrimental to my existence, my day-to-day life, and really made it super hard to live, that those things would pass, that it wouldn't be forever. And so accepting that. Um, and also like not being pulled by the condition, like it's not in charge of me, I'm in charge of it.
You talk about how punk rock has really helped you through a lot of stuff. What do you love most about punk rock?
Oh, it's just the energy of it. It's the excitement of being in a room with a bunch of people and screaming your lungs out and having your favorite bands and loving to read their lyrics, and they've got messages to them. They're not just like, it's not music that's mindless or empty. It's got a lot of substance to it. So I think it's a combination of just that release of energy, but also knowing that it's for a purpose. Like you get into the mosh pit. I don't do that as much anymore because I'm getting older, but you get in the mosh pit and it's not just about banging into each other and it's not any kind of a violent thing, even though it may appear to be so from someone on the outside. It's very much about community and picking each other up and having a ton of fun. As far as the music itself goes, to me, it's just always been, I also live with ADHD. So to me, the music has always just been a way of calming my brain. Some people listen to classical music to calm down. For me, it has to be super noisy, loud, screamy music to really get me in a place where I feel relaxed.
So what is screen therapy?
Well, this is a difficult one because a lot of people thought that the book was about, the modality of scream therapy, that it was some sort of a medical or clinical uh, form of therapy. And really what I was using it for, and it was coming up in my writing all through the years before I really knew what it meant, was that, this is a situation where, you have to get out your emotions and your angst and what's bothering you somehow. So screaming is a way to do it. And you're not screaming into an empty room or, screaming into a pillow. You're screaming with other people. So that creates that community. So for me, scream therapy is all about just like, essentially it's about love. It's about being with people. It's about, like being, unapologetic about screaming. And when I use the word screaming, that could be, a metaphor for living in the world in a way that someone wants to authentically. Yeah, so for me, scream therapy is just that like it's almost like a rallying cry rather than, like let's sit you down and we're gonna do scream therapy and you're gonna scream this long and it's gonna help you do this. It's not the kind of thing you'd find in a room with a clinician. It's way more than that.
So where do you do screen therapy exactly? Is it like you would meet with a bunch of people at like a particular place, or is it outside?
No, well, no, you'd go to punk shows. You'd be right there in the front row of the punk show and screaming along with the bands. A lot of punk bands, I'm sure a lot of your listeners know, but punk rock is a lot of screaming and noise and chaos and in a way that makes sense to people that know what it is. So yeah, you're right there at the show. You're screaming with the bands. You're at home and you're listening and you're singing along. There's no, it's not formal. It's not like a lot of so-called therapies will be like you're in a circle with people and you're doing group therapy. No, this is not therapy in the sense of, like medical therapy or clinical therapy. It's a form of therapy, that could be playing tennis or it could be going to a retreat or whatever. But this is like it's all about the music and all about the sweaty kind of dark, like uh therapeutic or like kind of like transformative moments of loudness, I guess.
And I can just imagine me going to like do some kind of screen therapy because I could just see myself screaming. But then I also have to think part of my job is talking, and so that way that would be really bad if
For
I
your
went
voice.
to that would be awful for my voice because then by like if I did it now by like 30, I'll be like I'll be like my voice will be gone.
Yeah, we had our jam yesterday for our band. We're playing a show on Thursday, and we hadn't jammed for a couple weeks, and so my voice will get raspy. But what I've learned over the years is like if you scream from your gut and your chest instead of from your throat, you won't lose your voice as much. I used to scream from my throat and I had no voice. Like I'd play one show on a tour, and then the next night my voice would be shot. So I've learned how to control that more. But I was gonna say, like, the difference between, you said, you like to try that or whatever. The difference between being in your house with nobody around and just screaming your head off versus being at a show with a bunch of people and screaming lyrics and messages and revolutionary statements. Like that's such a different thing. And I think that's what people kind of mistaken sometimes. It's like you're just screaming for nothing. You're just like letting it all out, and you are, but you're doing it in a way that actually has some meaning. And I think that makes all the difference.
I would say probably from if I went back home and I was home by myself, I could do it here. I'd have a wellness check be put on me because I live in an apartment complex and I'd be having officers at my door be like, "Are you okay?"
Yeah.
But um, the furthest I've gone, because I don't know how much I am about losing my voice, because my roommates took me out to the bar for the first time, I think a year or two ago, and they played music so loud there to where you had to scream. I thought, I'm
Yeah.
not losing my voice over this. I said, and
Yeah.
this was before our podcast. I was like, I'm not losing my voice over this. I said, no. The whole time I was there, I did not talk. I was just in the corner,
Yeah.
just not saying anything because I thought this it's not worth it.
Yeah.
So, what does screaming feel like to you?
It's it's interesting because as soon as I start screaming in a band, and again, I wouldn't just go down in the forest and start screaming. That's just not what does it for me. But as soon as I start screaming in a band or even screaming along with other bands playing, it kind of puts me into this zone of I feel like things are coming out and I'm expressing myself, but I'm doing it in a way that's so extreme and so I want to say tough, but it's not, that's the wrong word. So strong that I almost kind of go into a bit of a zone, and I can kind of control my voice in ways that maybe I wouldn't be able to if I was just singing, and I can't sing. Let's put that out there. I'm not a very good singer at all. Um, so it just feels like it feels kind of like it feels like I'm alive when I do it. It feels like I'm coming to life, or I'm kind of coming into my own, I guess. And it's about confidence. I mean, I'm a fairly confident person, like regardless, but like getting up there and really like, screaming, especially in front of people, can provide you with a sense of empowerment. I guess is a better word than confidence. It's feeling like you have something that you can offer to people and that they're hopefully going to get something out of it. So yeah, it's a whole like range of emotions, but mostly it just feels good. It just feels like power, I guess. Yeah, not the kind of power that I'm looking down on people, but just like I feel powerful.
So, what has changed in your life since your diagnosis?
Yeah, a lot of things. I mean, stability is a huge thing for folks with bipolar, right? So the goal is to be stable. So that means that you're not in extreme back and forth moods. You're kind of like rippling, like what you would say, quote unquote, normal person would be. So on bad days you feel kind of shitty, and then on good days you're feeling excited. And sometimes if you're something bad happens, you're feeling sad, but like they're not extreme versions of those emotions. So I think that's what's happened is I'm a lot more even keeled. I mean, I think people would say that I listen better. I do a lot of support group work, so I do facilitating for support groups, and you really have to listen in those groups. I think that I'm more patient. I think, having my system been sort of settled over the years after being diagnosed, and medication is a huge part of that. I just feel more relaxed, and I feel more anxiety is also a huge part of bipolar. So I feel a lot less anxious sometimes. Yeah, I think mostly I just know like I'm in control of my life. I think I know I was out of control before, and I was doing reckless stuff. I was doing things in my life that were like really hurting people, hurting myself. A lot of people talk about with bipolar talk about the, burning down their lives, which, that phrase. And it's true, like people spend all their money, people end up being, in trouble with the law, like all these things. So to be able to get away from all that recklessness and danger is huge. It settles the mind. I feel just a lot more, yeah, calm and maybe even more confident.
Why is community important for mental health?
Well, I think a lot of people tend to isolate when they're having a hard time. One of the things that you always hear is in a lot of the mental health campaigns and stuff is like reach out to somebody, reach out to somebody. I think that that's the biggest key. I think also there's some trouble with that because the onus is on other people. The onus is on me to reach out when I'm feeling horrible, but that puts the kind of pressure on me to do that. And I think what we need to do is, people that are looking like they're having a hard time or they've told you having a hard time, that you would reach out to them. You wouldn't expect them to reach out to you. So yeah, that's probably the biggest thing. Um, I also feel like, if well, it's obvious if you don't have anybody, you're going to be super lonely. There's no one to reach out to. But I also think the community, like finding your people that like common things, no matter what that is. And in my case, it was punk rock. Without those people, I could be really lost. So I felt really welcome in that scene when I first found it. Um, I felt like I had a place and I felt like there was purpose. And of course, a lot of people with like severe mental health conditions, like they can't find that. There's a lot of existentialism, like who am I? What am I supposed to do here? Why no one cares about me? It just goes and goes and goes. So without people to kind of bounce um, yourself off of in a mosh pit, you literally bounce yourself off people. But without that, it's really, really tough to cope.
I find community to be very important as well. A lot of people, when they tend to get depressed, I've done it too, and I'm pretty sure if you've dealt with depression, and even if you don't, there's been a point where you just want to just disassociate with anyone. You want to be put into your own bubble. And I mean, there's times when that's permittable. I mean, I think we all need some time to ourselves and focus on ourselves. But if you deal with any kind of mental health struggle, staying in that bubble by yourself long can lead to consequences. It can
For
lead
sure.
to bad thoughts, bad actions. So, I've always said not it's not the end of the world if you go and reach out to somebody. That's the whole point of what a community is for. It took me a while to open up to people about my mental health struggles and took a long time for me to finally open up and be like, yeah, I have depression, anxiety. Deal with this on the daily. And, I still have times where I'm like, I don't want anyone to talk to me because it's always what you said at the campaigns, reach out. And I in the end do tend to reach out, but at first I do the whole no one talk to me, I need time to myself. And then after I've had time to myself, then I start slowly opening up to people.
Yeah. Well, I've never or very rarely regretted going out to an event or to a party or whatever. I've often regretted not going. Not going can cause it, it isolates myself more. It makes me more lonely. So I think like going out and doing things is great, whether that's just going for a walk with a friend or whatever it is. But taking that action is huge, and you come away feeling a lot better. So yeah, I think maybe not even reaching out is really good, of course, but like taking some sort of like forward momentum, go for a walk, go to an event, go do something. That's a good way to sort of jog your system or yourself out of a depression.
Yeah, I always mention it to people, it doesn't really matter what you do, just try to find something that will get your mind off what you're thinking about. There have been
Mhm.
many a times where just something simple as drawing or painting or watching TV, listening to music or something like that always helps. I mean, walking's been is always beneficial. Just try to drive for a little bit and really anything that you can think of. I know it might not help but and everyone's different. You know, going out for a walk and doing all this stuff might not help. There might be other things, and that's totally okay. You just have to kind of find that path of what works best for you. And it's the whole thing of it might take some time to figure out what exactly makes you be in a safe place and a good place, but it's I would not give up on it. There have been times where I've wanted to give up because nothing I was trying helps, but it's always the thing of you don't really want to ever give up because if you give up, that means that your inner demons win, and whatever is trying to get you down, that's going to win. And the whole thing is you want to overcome that, fight it, and beat them, beat those thoughts, and be on top of everything. So, in relation to this whole journey, what's probably been the biggest lesson you've learned?
Well, I think one big one is, and it relates to reaching out for help, but I think that when I'm doing my projects, like I'm doing a big metal and punk festival here in town in August, and I do a lot of different, like putting on shows and bands and, all these sort of fun projects. I think in the past, because my moods were all over the place, that I felt like I had to do it all on my own and I had to be the one responsible all the time. And I think that I'm a pretty good leader, but I think I wouldn't delegate anything. So it'd be like just like I got to do this, I got to do that, and I think I've learned to like rely on other people. I've applied what I've learned in the punk scene to my outside life, so I've gotten away from the kind of stuff that I don't really belong to. For instance, I was working a job that was probably about 50 to 60 hours a week, high pressure, high stress, a corporate job for a corporate company that I did not like, that I thought I could do, that I thought I could make my own. I could turn it into a job that was had some punk ethics, some punk morals, and I just couldn't. So I don't even try anymore. Like I'll probably never have a full-time job ever again because it just doesn't like go along with my life. It doesn't make sense to me. I want to do this thing and this thing and this thing. So, and a lot of these things are volunteer work. Like I'm doing all kinds of volunteer work. I'm doing putting on these shows. I don't make any money off of it. It's just something that I care about. So like to have a really demanding lifestyle based on, currency and capitalism and all these things that we're told to do, and we got to be moving and doing things all the time, just doesn't work for me anymore. I'm busy, but I'm busy on my own terms.
Who have been some of your biggest inspirations during this whole journey?
Well, I always say Ian MacKaye, he's this musician and runs a record label in Washington, D.C. called Discord Records, and he's in a band called Fugazi. He was in a band called Minor Threat, which is back in the 80s. And a lot of the things that I like, even when I was saying the thing about, like just doing what's in front of me and, not feeling pressured to have to work in a corporate environment, like that's totally, it almost feels like I'm modeling myself after him, which is great. He's a very like uh, influential and his morals are just like spot on for kind of what I believe in. Um, but I think also like a lot of my friends have inspired me. A lot of the people that have gone through these mental health challenges and come out the other end, with stability are really inspiring. A lot of the people in my support group, really inspire me, even if they're having the hardest time in the world. They're right down in the dumps and, they're ready to run away and never come back. They still really inspire me because I'll see them the next week and they're doing better. And I'll see them the next week and they're doing, worse again and better again. And that's the nature of bipolar. It's you're not going to ever be, uh, you know, completely stable. So yeah, those people really inspire me. My partner inspires me. She does all kinds of cool stuff. My kids inspire me. Um, and a lot of the musicians in the bands to be able to write music like that and to be able to write such great lyrics. And people think punk rock is just all like super easy music, but it's actually can be quite intricate, and that's pretty cool.
To kind of end, what advice do you have for people that might be dealing with bipolar or have similar mental health struggles and they feel like they don't? What advice do you have for them to maybe get them through tough times?
Well, I think when I was first diagnosed, I probably would have just said, and it was advice to myself as well, I would have said just ride it out, take it day by day, minute by minute. The moods will pass. They're not you're not going to be down and up like this forever. You're not going to be like out of control high. It's going to come down again. You're not going to be super, super low, suicidal. You're going to come back up again. So that's the advice I would have given myself at that point. Now that I'm more stable, I think I know what's coming. I can feel the sim like I always talk about symptoms based, right? So I would explain to people like, yes, this is a mental health condition. It's involving a lot of stuff that's in your system and in your mind. But it's also very symptoms based, like a lot of medical conditions. So, like with depression, I'll get really sore and tired and fatigued, and I'll start to have headaches, and sometimes I'll feel like actually like I've got the flu or a cold. And then in mania, I start to feel really like overexcited, and sometimes start to have like kind of delusional thoughts, and sometimes I'll feel like kind of tingly. So these are all symptoms of this. So when I start to feel those symptoms, I'm kind of ahead of the game, right? Like I'm not letting myself get dragged down into feeling horrible because I've already like clocked those different symptoms. So I talk about it being sort of like a ladder. Like the ladder of symptoms would be like like you're kind of stable, then all of a sudden you start to have like you're getting a bit like tired, and then all of a sudden you start to have some negative thoughts, and then you're like running down the ladder, and then you're down in the suicidal ideation stuff, and getting down close to the bottom. And the same thing with the ladder to the top, the manic symptoms. So I guess it's about like really like pulling it apart and analyzing it a bit more. I think when I was in it, it's just like you can't really do much. You're just like, I got to get through this day. That's all you can really think about. Once things start to get a bit more settled, and they talk about, bipolar, really, once you're diagnosed, it takes a good up to 10 years just to kind of get into what we call remission, right? So yeah, just like ride it out until you know what those symptoms are, and then pay attention to your symptoms and make sure you can clock them. And mood charts, like I would say, always use a mood chart, which is just this piece of paper or on your phone or whatever that you just mark each day where you are on the chart. So let's say you have zero is stable and -10 is the most depressed and +10 is the most manic. You kind of just clock it on there and sort of see what the patterns are. Those patterns in my case were very, very constant. Like I could lay out my 6 years of charts and see that the pattern is there. It just got from being really up and down like a roller coaster to being like a smaller roller coaster, but still the same patterns, which is amazing, right? It's like that's my body regulating itself over the years.
I've always found the best advice I give is writing helps. I've always found that, if you're are having a hard time, writing really does make a difference. And it can just be a sentence, it could be a tagline that you could write, it could be a 20-page essay about stuff that's going on. It really doesn't matter. And it's something that you necessarily don't have to share. It's something that completely could be kept for yourself. But if you want to share it with other people to help them get through it, I think that's fine. It's just more of it's up to you, but I always say write regardless because you get a lot of honest opinions and some of your honest thoughts out on paper, and it really does help you in the long run, and makes you be in such better spirits and helps you get a lot of anger out. Um,
Yeah,
for
like in my case with writing the book, I felt like I had to get my story out to that point. Once I got my story out to that point, then I could kind of carry on from there. So it almost felt like a survival technique to write that book and kind of be done with that chapter and then move through that, and kind of start life again, I guess, would be the way to say it.
for people that want to learn more about your story and learn more about you, where can they find you at?
I have a website called screamtherapyhq.com. So it's screamtherapyhq as in headquarters.com. And that's where the podcast is. You can order the book there. There's some more information there as well. Um, I don't do a lot of social media, especially for the scream therapy stuff. The podcast can be found in all the podcast apps, so you can get it wherever you listen to a podcast, as well as from the website. So yeah, it's I'm out there, but I'm not like you got to find me. Let's put it that way.
And an easy way for you to find him would be look in my description box. I'll always put, as I say with all my guests, put all of his links in the description box below so that all of his links and social media accounts will be all in one place for you to find easy access to. As you said, he's the host of Screen Therapy, which is a podcast that he is the host of. It's available wherever you get your podcast from. I just wanted to say quickly thank you, Jason, for sharing your story with me and sharing some advice with my listeners. And keep doing what you're doing. Stay strong.
Thanks a lot, Noah. Thanks for having me.
As always, if you would like to keep updates about the podcast and would like to follow me on social media, feel free to follow me on Instagram and TikTok at Lethal Venom Podcast, as well as follow me on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter at Noah's Podcast. And also, if you would like to keep updates about the podcast and follow it, the podcast is available wherever podcasts are available at Spotify, Apple, Amazon, iHeartRadio, YouTube, Pandora. It's everywhere. Feel free to follow the podcast on there to get notified when new episodes come out. Thank you all so much for listening to today's episode. Y'all have a great rest of your day and week, and I'll catch you on the next episode of Lethal Venom.